Now that we've reviewed the different ad types and their placements in Amazon, it's important to know of the different costs you might see of running these different types of placements. Here to provide insights and give her expertise on this specific area of PPC is Destiny of Better AMS.
What's up, everyone? My name is Destiny Vachon, and I'm co-founder and CEO of Better AMS. And in this video, we're going to be covering all of the Amazon advertising placements on the page and their associated cost. So one thing I always see being asked and talked about in the groups is, why is this placement so expensive? Or why is my suggested bid this for here or there? So I thought we would cover it in a quick video. So Amazon advertising is very similar to buying real estate. Some placements are much better than others. As you can see here with this number one keyword, I typed in biotin, and we're looking at the very top of search. So you see a headline search ad at the very beginning of the page, and then you see 3 to 4 sponsored product placements directly below. This is called top of search, and this is some of the most expensive real estate you can get. Now, what people don't tend to realize is just how many sponsored product ad placements there are for any one keyword. So we're still just looking at biotin. So pretend that you set up a sponsored product keyword campaign targeting biotin and exact match. You know that you can win this placement or this one or some more directly below here. Scroll down further within the page and you'll see a few more show up within the search results here. But what people don't typically realize is that if you click into any one listing, you're also going to see a high number of sponsored product placements directly below the product detail page. So here we have 35 pages of sponsored product results. If we scroll a little bit lower, you'll see we have 93 pages of sponsored product results. So when Amazon is giving you a suggested bid, they are taking the average of all of these placements. And since it's an auction model, you have hundreds of people bidding on all of these different placements at any given time. So if you bid, for example, $5 on this keyword, you're probably going to show up at the top of search or very high up in the page in the expensive real estate section. It's going to be very expensive, but you're going to get a ton of impressions and a ton of clicks because you're paying for that better real estate. Now, if you take this exact same keyword and bid 37 cents, you're probably going to show up in one of these sections, which is not fantastic. Or you may show up on page 3 or page 4 of the search results, which means you're not going to get a lot of impressions. You're not going to get a lot of clicks. So that is why there's a strong correlation between how high you bid and how much traffic you are getting. So when you see this suggested bid, know that is an average of very, very many placements. So that's why it's typically not that accurate, because you can bid lower and still get traffic, but it's probably not going to be fantastic placement on the page. You still will get high value clicks, but not a ton of them. Now, if you bid really, really high, you get the best traffic in real estate on the page. But if you don't convert that well, it's just going to be really expensive for you. So for sponsored products, there are tons and tons of placements, and that's why we see that wide variance. Now, if we want to talk about other ad types really quickly, we can talk about sponsored brands, which typically has one placement on the top of the page, typically has a video and search ad in the middle of the page, and then usually 3 to 4 placements at the very bottom of the page here, and then sometimes they'll show up on the product detail page. This means that sponsored brands has a lot less real estate than sponsored products. Just on page 1, we're only seeing 5 different placements. Sponsored products has that at the very top of search. So when you're bidding on sponsored brand ads, know that sometimes they can be more competitive. There's less real estate and the same amount of people potentially bidding on them. Now, one thing that does give sponsor brands an advantage is you do have to be brand registered to run them. So not all, sellers have the opportunity to access this ad type, so that can balance it out. Video and search, I would say, is probably even more competitive because there's only one placement on page 1. Sometimes they show up on the product detail page, and sometimes they show up on page 2 and page 3. So if everyone is bidding on the keyword biotin in a video and search campaign, it's just going to be a higher and higher auction, meaning has the opportunity to be some of the most expensive placements on the page. Now, if you're in a not very competitive category and no one's bidding on the video ad, you're going to win it for a very regular price. But that's the reason you're sometimes seeing an increase in cost per clicks for video ads. There's not a lot of real estate on the page. So when a lot of people are bidding on it, it just becomes pay to play. Now, sponsored display is very, very similar. I don't know if we have any showing here. It does not look like we do. But if we wanted to go and look at a product detail page, we'll see typically 2 sponsored display ads here, here. And then if we scroll a little bit lower, we usually see a few more. This is a DSP ad. And this is a DSP ad. So on this page, we have 2 sponsored display ads, which means if a ton of people are bidding on this main product right now or focusing on this category, again, it can get pretty expensive because there's not a lot of real estate for sponsored display. Now, this is an ad type Amazon is heavily investing in right now. We're seeing the opportunity to run ads off of Amazon and on Amazon with sponsored display. So that means it may get cheaper, but just know less real estate, a ton of people bidding on it, they can get expensive. Not always, but all it takes is one person coming into the market and outbidding you to drive up those costs per click. So for all of the ad types, that's typically what we see in terms of Amazon advertising real estate. Top of search, gonna be very expensive to win those placements, but you get the most traffic, most impressions, most clicks, because anyone who looks for any search term related to this, the first thing they're gonna see is sponsored ads, not even the organic listing, which is all the way down here. So very valuable real estate on the page. Now, if we want to talk about what this means for bid management and starting bids, we can definitely dive into that. Now, if you're going to create a sponsored product campaign, this is typically the first thing you're going to see. It's going to ask you your campaign name, portfolio, daily budget, targeting, and then campaign bidding strategy. So if I'm looking at campaign bidding strategy, the first thing I typically start with is either fixed bids or dynamic bids down only. The reason being is if you're running fixed bids, you know exactly what your bid is, and it's easier to track from a math perspective. Now, fixed bids is potentially, gonna spend a little bit more money than what dynamic bids down only is, but you have control. Now, if you're very profitability focused and you're just starting out, dynamic bids down only can be a very awesome opportunity for you because Amazon's going to help you optimize towards profitability. They're going to lower your bid if they think that someone's just window shopping and not likely to, convert. So those are the 2 options I almost always recommend starting with. If you're really focused on scaling and you have money to spend on advertising, you can definitely look at dynamic bids up and down. But Amazon's going to take your bid and potentially raise it by 100%, which makes it really hard to track from a math perspective because you're going to see your bid and your cost per click may be a lot higher and you don't have a lot of control. So again, if I'm starting off, I'm probably going to recommend fixed bids and dynamic bids down only. So that way you have direct control and you can focus on profitability and, optimizing towards saving money. Now, directly below that, you're going to see adjusting bids by placement. Amazon automatically filled in 100% here. I do not want that. If I am looking at my placement modifiers, I almost always start with 0% for top of search and 0% for product detail pages. I don't like playing around with these in the beginning because again, I want to have direct control over my bid. I don't like Amazon being able to raise it and or decrease it in any scenario. I want to have control over what I'm running. Now, if I scroll lower and I were to add products and actually decide on the keywords I'm targeting or the products I'm targeting, the next option is going to be the bids I want for those keywords. So this is very important. That bid management is one of the most important things you can do to make your Amazon advertising successful. But if you're looking at starting bids, it can be pretty confusing because, your suggested bids may be incredibly high or you may not know exactly where you need to be within the market. My number 1 recommendation is you can always start low. So if you're looking at launching, maybe start with very low 50-cent bids. And then if you run those keywords at 50-cent bids and within 24 hours, 48 hours, you see you're not getting any impressions or clicks, then you're probably not bidding enough for your market. So you can go in and you can increase your bids by 10 cents. If you still see you're not getting traffic, increase a little bit more. That's the beauty of Amazon advertising is we can really make data-based decisions. And I'd almost always rather start low and collect data than set really high bids, get a ton of traffic, but lose money fast because I bid way too high and I'm not converting well. So that's probably my number 1 tip again, Amazon suggested bids are a very good starting place for where you need to be in order to get impressions. But in the very beginning, sometimes you do need to bid higher to really prove to Amazon and collect that data that you need to be showing for whatever keyword you're targeting. So keep the suggested bids in mind, but always recommend starting low. Unless you have a lot of budget and you're wanting to collect data quicker, then you can start high, but keep an eye on things. And if you realize you're spending too much money for your conversion rate, you could always lower your bid as needed. So those are my general tips for setting starting bids. One other thing I did want to mention is that after you've ran a campaign for some time and you have data, you can go within your campaign and see this tab called placements. What this tab is going to show you is your actual placement data based off your campaign history. So in this example here, you can see top of search has driven $300,000 in sales at a $7 ROAS versus the product pages have driven $100,000 in sales at a $5 ROAS. Although all of them are converting incredibly well, top of search is much, much better. So in this scenario, I might be willing to go in and increase my top of search bid adjustment because the data shows I'm converting a lot better there. So I may want to win more traffic at the top of search. Now, one thing to note with placement modifiers is they do affect every single keyword within a campaign. This is why I'm weary about running them. Again, I don't like making crazy adjustments to my bids. I like using my own software and having direct control. If you start adding a bunch of modifiers, things can go crazy really quick. But all this to say, again, database decisions. In this scenario, I can see top of search is running much, much more efficiently than my product detail pages. So I have the data to say, yes, increase my bid adjustments. And that's something everyone can do as well. So all in all, I think I covered all the basics on Amazon advertising real estate, suggested bids, and placement modifiers. If I can reiterate one thing in all of this is that bid optimization and understanding where your ads are showing and how much you're paying for those ads is one of the most important aspects of making your Amazon advertising successful. So thank you so much, and everyone have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye, guys.